Well, hello everybody, and welcome once again to this week's edition of the Inworld Review, where it is, if I've got my facts right, it is the 15th of December already. Winter is really approaching fast, as is the holiday season and, of course, the new year. Just to get my timing fully right, check the century, it is 2013. I think I'm going to start missing that bit out in future, but for those in future generations rewatching this show, maybe I should keep saying the year. I don't know. Anyway, welcome, welcome, welcome. It has been not a particularly busy news week, but it has been a bit of a busy week for us. Um, Lots of dress rehearsals for various things during the week, including a show that will be coming up after this one, which is the Avi Awards. It's an awards hosted by our friend Safia and her partner Elric from Designing Worlds. And they give out awards in a huge compendium of categories in the virtual world. So we rehearsed for that a bit in the week. And yesterday, of course, was a mammoth broadcast. It always ends up being mammoth. There was a sort of 2 hour script, and of course, 6.5 hours later, the show actually finished. It was the inimitable Miss Virtual World competition put on by Frolic Mills and the Bottle crowd. And fascinating it was, especially if you like looking at lots of female avatars in swimming costumes and ball gowns and stuff like that, telling us all a bit about the countries they come from. Because the wonderful thing about virtual worlds, of course, is that it's an engagement place, a meeting place for people from all over the world. Where else can you meet with somebody at the other end of the planet in a totally different time zone and have a meaningful conversation? As well as just demonstrate wonderful things to them. You can't do that with any other medium, I assure you. Anyway, because of the Avi Awards, we'll be going off air slightly before a quarter to, about 20 to 2 at the absolute latest. So although we're open-ended here, we won't be quite so open-ended if we go on that long. So we don't have a fully packed show today. It's just me and Tara, and we have one guest here who is I'll be excited to introduce in a second. But first of all, I'm just going to give a quick rundown of the stuff I've got in my general sort of metaverse feeds, stuff to do with the metaverse as a whole. An interesting interview appeared that you can find at henryjenkins.org. That's HenryJenkins.org, published in the week. It's an interview with Henry Jenkins, believe it or not. He's republished it himself. And it's called From Imaginary to Virtual Worlds. And Henry Jenkins is a historian. And he's been conducting interviews, I should say, with what he calls key contemporary thinkers writing about the concept of world building from a historical standpoint. So if you're interested in the history of all these things, do check that out. henryjenkins.org. The next article I have open, if my browser is playing nicely, is from gridjumper.net, grdjumper.net. And this is an article saying, is machinima the new diorama? Again, interesting. Probably it has more to do with academic fairs and things like that, but acknowledging machinima as an art form. And while I remember immediately after this show, the beginning of our machinima section actually features an extended 35-minute documentary, which is basically all about machinima, but told in machinima form. And it was made for the recent Machinima Expo by Hydra Pickens. I think I've got the name right. And we reviewed it again recently for the LEA Machinima of the Month last week. And rewatching it, I thought, oh, this is daft. I've really got to put it up on the show and show it despite its length. So that will be coming up later on at about 1:45, something like that, or maybe a bit earlier, depending on how things go with us here today. Gridjumper.net for that little article. And no sooner were we off air, well, give or take a few hours, but coming in here, I mean, it's UK time, I guess, on Monday morning, was a loss of new exposures from the Guardian newspaper about I don't think I better say our friends at the NSA. It doesn't really sound right, does it? The activities of America's NSA, but actually more importantly, the um, the abhorrent activities of GCHQ here in the UK. It's really about the spy agencies being in games like World of Warcraft and Second Life here, for example, spying on us. Now, this actually isn't new news. I don't know what made them think it was. We've known this. I think it's since '98, believe it or not '98, 2008. But what was interesting about the revelations was the actual extent of it. We found out that GCHQ had actually conducted an exercise where they took a sample of 3 days and they monitored all voice chat, all text chat, all movement, everything that was happening in Second Life for a period of 3 days. And presumably then analysed it to sort of find out in more detail what was going on and where they maybe needed to concentrate their efforts, which I thought was, 3 days dedicated to Second Life research, basically using literally absolutely every amount of data coming in and out of it. The most amusing thing about it, although I thought, was the reports about the NSA. The NSA apparently had so many agents in Second Life at one point that they had to form a special group of moderators because they found that all the NSA agents were following suspicious people. And these suspicious people turned out to be also other NSA agents. In other words, they were spying on themselves because they themselves were seen as doing suspicious activities.
I missed that. Oh, that's priceless.
That yes, exactly. So they had to actually form groups of over a kind of a virtual oversight committee to make sure that these spies weren't spying on themselves by mistake and to actually concentrate on spying on us. Yeah, I thought it was hilarious.
That's
But
choice.
Modem World, that's MODENWRLD, WordPress.com, which of course is another Pays blog. It has a good summary on this, although if you follow blogs, you've probably not been able to avoid a blog, 20 blogs a day on this subject. But in ours, Pays post is the spies who came in from the virtual, which I think is a nice play on the John le Carre, I believe it was, spies who came in from the cold. Anyway, anecdotes. So you really got to laugh at this. There's not much else you could do, I'm afraid. What else have I got in the list here? Right, NSA. Spy agencies. Yes, the endless repeat of the same thing. So much so that if I don't scroll to the top here, there might be. There probably isn't nothing. Oh yeah, hypergrid business. It hasn't been any major news this week. There's a 4-week report from justinCC.org on the last 4 weeks of OpenSIM development. But Maria at hypergridbusiness.com announced that AviWorld's grid was down yet again. Now, this actually seems to be a case of popping up and down. They apparently disconnected from the hypergrid, and then because their users demanded it, immediately reconnected to the hypergrid within about 2 hours or something. And then their simulators were down, and then they were up again, and now apparently they're down again. So nobody quite knows what is going on with AviWorlds. Since the report that they were down, I have not yet seen another report that they're up. So whether the yo-yo has stopped in the down position, I'm not quite sure. We will bring you more on that future weeks, no doubt, when we find out what the status of AviWorlds is. And yeah, and very interesting. If you are a kid or were a kid or something, you may actually know of a virtual world, and I use the expression carefully. It's called Club Penguin. And these days it's owned by the Disney Corporation. And it really is for youngsters. It's not like a fully fleshed out virtual world that like the one I'm sitting in here now. But it probably does qualify as a virtual world. Is simply because it is about a whole lot more than gaming. It's about its community and everything else. Well, if you are somebody who plays or uses Club Penguin, you'll be delighted to know that it's now available on the iPad. Walt Disney have produced a mobile version, which is effectively an interface to the real thing. It's not it's an app, of course, but it's not a separate app from the virtual world, as it were. So good to see another platform coming online in usable mobile technology. Daniel Voyager, danielvoyagerwordpress.com, of course, has a summary of up and coming plan changes for Kitely. Kitely being a visual system which, of course, you can access via the web, and it connects to OpenSymGrids. And I keep forgetting whether it gets to Second Life 2, but it certainly gets to Open Simulators, and they do hosting. They have a very different kind of hosting plan from the likes of Second Life or many of the Open Sim grids. And they are actually announcing changes to their account structure and stuff like that, which will be coming into 2014, which of course is very near now. So check out Daniel Voyager's blog if you want more on that. And yeah, I think that's it for what you might call the serious news department. There's plenty of serious news coming up, but it's more in-world news, so to speak. So without further ado, before I introduce a very interesting guest today, I'm going to hand it over to my partner Tara for her roundup of the week.
Well, thank you, Mal, and greetings everyone from the Pacific Northwest, where amazingly the sun is out at the moment and the temperature is well above freezing, which is really nice after the long stretch of very cold weather we had in this corner of the swamp. I was pleased to finally find temperatures that didn't require 3 layers if you were going to venture outside. Anyhow, well, of course, we have to start with the show and tell segment, and we have this week's rendition of the ugly holiday sweater on, and the hat the hat I am wearing is one of my acquisitions from one of the gotchas at the Gotcha Pavilion right now. So you too can acquire a hat that looks like this if you stick enough nickels in the slot. It's pretty fun. This hat may make noise. I have another one from the same gotcha that has bells, which I discovered when I happened to log in and just happened to notice this to turn off the sounds message, and I said oops and promptly killed them since I didn't really want to sound like jingle bells going everywhere. Anyhow,
perfect to announce your arrival. I missed that one.
Yeah. Well, I don't think this one has sounds with it. I didn't see a message, so anyhow. But the other thing I want to introduce is over next to Hieronymus. There's a pile of ornaments, and perched on the top of one of the ornaments is one of this year's holiday kitty cats releases. There are 2 different ones that have been introduced, 2 different kinds, and this is the Purr Ball. The Purr Ball is a Christmas ornament. And he is still very much a kitten because he was just hatched yesterday because they've just barely been released in the store. But you'll notice he has an ornament hanger on top of his head.
I'm looking.
Now, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what. Yes.
Sorry, I have to say, I'm watching the monitor with Pet Love's camera here, and it's just adorable. Yeah.
Yeah, very adorable. And the other one, which you'll meet next week, just because it will be more effective and by the time it's full grown, is the naughty kitties. Of course, we all know, as both Hieronymus and Pritchard are demonstrating the great fascination that cats have with Christmas trees and for doing things with ornaments and other items hanging from trees. And I know folks who actually have taken to hanging their Christmas trees from the ceiling upside down in order to not have ornaments everywhere in fairly short order. Anyhow, so those are, and we've got a requisite Christmas tree, and some decorations around too. So we're well set here, I think, for the holidays.
If I can interrupt there, just before you finish the show and tell, Tara, it's just I've just remembered that I actually done a bit of my own show and tell. The absolutely adorable feline that is my normal avatar when I'm not being a human, so to speak, has been replaced lately by a little squirrel, a Christmas squirrel. Though we showed a little clip of it last week, but I've just realised I had a reservoir one too, and it's at my feet. So if you see this,
Uh,
if you see one of these characters popping around in a vicinity near you, you'll know that I am present and probably spying on you in my GCHQ persona. There he is, isn't he wonderful? Yeah,
he's wonderful. Yes. Well, we know that when you're in this avatar that you're just scrolling around. So
yeah, I know, and I do.
sorry.
And when I was dancing the other day, and it actually does do dances, human dances, rather well. But I did actually have to point out to somebody in no uncertain terms that I am a squirrel and I hold the nuts in my hands. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. I'm sorry, carry on, Tara, before I digress and degenerate.
Uh, I think I'm just going to let that one go by.
Same here.
We just won't touch that one.
I
All right. Well, on to some less less lightweight items. The United Content Creators of Second Life, or a group which formed specifically to apply suitable pressure on Linden Lab to deal with the issues with um, the terms of service and people's stuff, and has had some headway with that. They've announced that they're taking a little break over the rest of the holidays and resuming back in January, taking action again. And Kylie Sabra, who was on the show here a while back about all this, said that failing an acceptable revision by the end of February, that they will begin assertive actions. And she also says 5 months is more than enough for the Linden Lab to have worked out a resolution to address our concerns. And I think she's absolutely right. That certainly is long enough. I mean, attorneys love to take longer than you ever think is reasonable, and I'll resist any comments about it.
they're probably on holiday already, but that's another matter.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, no, it's just the extra time that things always seem to take, and of course the meter's running when that time is being used by any attorney, especially corporate ones. Anyhow, on a sad note, Osprey Therian has passed away. Osprey was a long time, very active Second Life participant, highly creative, and did lots of machinima. And Mal, I'm going to try to pull together a quick set of some of her machinima to suggest we do a little cameo on part of next week's run. She was had MS, multiple sclerosis, and so it was a long-term disability, basically. And she knew she was going. So this was to those who knew her well and were close to her. This was no surprise. She was, she was in hospice, and but definitely someone who'll be missed. She was in real life. She was actually. I wouldn't call her a neighbor because I never met her in person, but she lived in my general area. Very well known real life artist with works in such places as Microsoft offices and various places, and lots of municipal kinds of settings where her work appears. And there was a major retrospective of her work in Olympia in 2006. So that tells you something about how significant her art has been in the Pacific Northwest. So,
If again, if I may interrupt, Tara, I did have this on my list for news later. Now, Safia is hosting AV Awards later, so she's not here today. But if you actually check out her blog, which is primperfectblog.wordpress.com, There was a post there. There have been many posts about this, including Daniel Voyager, marking the passing of Australian's creator Vivian Kendall in Second Life, and there was actually a memorial that took place yesterday in the midst of, sadly, all the other things that were going on. But if you'd like to check out the post from Safia, she's actually included rather a lot of information, including some links on that page to some of her best work and related things. So she's done a lot of work on getting links there. So
wonderful. Yes.
Thought I mentioned that while we're on the subject, so to speak.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you. Onward. A couple of holiday events coming up that I just thought I'd mention in passing. The Dickens Group is doing a Christmas Carol, and they're doing it over 5 days this week in segments, doing 2 times a day for each 1 day per segment, and two shows. So there's 1 o'clock and then a 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, depending upon the day, as the second showing time. And then next week on 2 days, they're doing additional performances of a different version, I think it is. Anyway, you'll find all the details at modemworld.wordpress.com and links. The sim is Cookie, where that is taking place. And the second one, Ballet Pixel, which is one of the longest running, if not the longest running, no, I don't think it's the longest running, but it's close to it, ballet troupe, virtual ballet troupe in Second Life, is presenting its 7th season of The Nut, which is their rendition of The Nutcracker, which is, of course, beloved holiday season ballet production in a good many places. And those are being done twice a week on Sundays and Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Second Life time through the holiday season. And I'm not sure about next Wednesday, but certainly this coming week on Wednesday and Sunday, and today for that matter, at 5 p.m. And that's at QUAT is the sim for that. Let's see, we have the requisite Eat Your Vegetable segment. First off, Project Interesting. This gets very interesting. We're back into interesting times now. There's been a release candidate update this week on Thursday. So if you're using the release candidate and you haven't logged in with it since Thursday, the next time you will get a mandatory message that you have to upgrade. This is supposed to be, there's a number of bugs, viewer crashes while reading chat history, small objects that do not load until they're very close, object out of range is not detected on teleport, and parts of linked objects are not shown, and incorrect amount of system memory detected on max. Those are the issues that have presumably been fixed. So that's a very interesting news, I thought. I couldn't pass that one by. This week's server deployments are the last scheduled deployments for 2013. They're also the last rolling restarts for the year, barring major issue or faults that necessitate an emergency restart. Next scheduled server-side deployments will take place week commencing January 6th. So the lab is clearly getting into holiday mode, and they're very much limiting their what they're inflicting on us.
Yeah, exactly. That's why it's all going wrong at the moment. We've got to wait till mid-January to sort it all out, no doubt. Oh dear, don't you love the lab, eh?
Yeah. And 2 interesting releases of third-party viewers that have undergone self-certification, self-service, and added to the third-party viewer directory. Control Alt Studios viewers, and they've described their viewers set up in order to try out and share a number of ideas. The first being stereoscopic 3D display and some initial Oculus Rift support. So if you have an Oculus Rift and you've been waiting for somebody to release something you can fiddle in Second Life with, here's your chance. And then the second one is You Can Do. And their description they describe as You Can Do gives a whole new perspective in Second Life by using a camera placement adopted by the vast majority of third person video games. Um, Also includes RLV. I wonder what RLV is, along with plenty of other useful tools. Yeah, very communicative there. Um, anyway, so if you are dying to use a viewer that has your perspective at the actual the correct elevation, so that avatars that are 7 feet tall really look 7 feet tall. This has long been one of the issues that others have pointed out in architecture, that you can't use a one-to-one um, ratio. It takes about a 1.3 or a 1.7 or something like that to get proportions correct, and then that throws everything else off. So anyway, that's it for the Eat Your Vegetables segment, and I have another little humor item, but I'll save that for later if it works, and if not, it'll certainly fit in over the holidays. So back to you, Matt.
Okay, well, wonderful, Tara, as usual. Now, I've got a few other in world links and stuff to come up, but I think we'll talk about them in a sort of general conversation later. I'd now like to get round to introducing today's guest, and it's a very interesting time in Second Life at the moment. There've been two major, what I would call major show launches in terms of quality shows being produced in Second Life, and my guest today is actually the host of another chat show. And I love chat shows. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here chatting, would I? This new show, we showed an extract featuring a Green Lantern interview actually about 2 weeks back. We didn't show the whole show or anything like that. But if you were watching, it's actually called Virtual Voice. And it's a really sort of nice compendium of not just like us rabbiting on one thing, but a whole stitching of various segments put together like a proper broadcast program. So I'd like to introduce the host of that show, and her name is Varda Silva. Welcome, Varda.
Oh, hi. Thank you for that. I really appreciate it.
Now, I said that it seems to be a time for new shows. I think both, well, Tara to a certain extent, but certainly people like me, the old jaded folk, we remember the days when the SLTV, which became Treat TV, was going, and they sort of faded out. So I worked with them a bit. There's Metaverse TV too, who've done various shows that come in and out of season and stuff, and special events like Miss Virtual World yesterday. But I never seem to be able to find enough chat shows. I think that's one of the reasons I do it. And on outside this program, we run a channel and we try and show the best of everything that's been put up on YouTube and stuff like that, which of course is where I came across yours. And I was struck by it immediately because, as I said in the intro, it is a segment-based show, isn't it? You start off with an interview, then you show another segment, then another interview, and it's like a program rather than just a single show. Is that your intention?
Yeah, well, see, I'm not really familiar with a lot of shows on SL because I actually came from another world called IMVU.
Oh
And
yes, yeah.
and so I wasn't really familiar with everything that was going on with Second Life. And I got a job working on another world at the time. It was called Spot on 3D.
Oh, okay.
And they needed someone to do a talk show, and I was just that kind of crazy person that said, I'll do it. I didn't know anything about anything. And I just thought it was a hoot to do. It would be something fun. And when I started doing it, I fell in love with it. But I noticed it was chat, only chat. And
Mhm.
as the more I got to do the shows and stuff, the more I realized that I wanted something different. And I didn't want to do anything like a dance show, and I just didn't want to do just a talk show. I kind of wanted to bring in the conglomeration of the network that I had with me with my network of friends to use their talents to kind of display that and to try to show off what's out there, because it's so hard to talent out here and all the virtual worlds that it's like, unless you have a way to connect, you will never know just the massive amount of entertainment and talent that's just waiting there for you. Everyone sits around in their houses and they go, "I'm so bored. What are we going to do tonight?"
Yes.
It's like if you actually stepped outside of your little virtual house and went to these events and stuff, there's more than just dancing. There's just these people that will completely blow your mind. And that's what I started investigating about the television shows that were out there. And I'm still learning about new ones every day. You know, like I just learned about your show, and it's not because maybe it's my fault because I'm ignorant in that way. I don't really know all the shows and everything that's out there, but everything is appreciated and every type of feedback's appreciated.
Well, to be honest, I suppose, yeah, well, we're not as obscure as we probably used to be, but especially as the Inworld review goes up on YouTube separate from the channel, and we get a lot of we get a lot of replay views. Well, we used to be totally live and have a live audience and everything else, participating. But it just works so better in here. But I think I can understand this sort of problem because I think people in the virtual world are rather like the real world and become sort of tribal. They adopt communities of their own, and slowly but surely, once the novelty of flying around and exploring wears off, they tend to hang out, with their group, with their tribe, as it were. And I think this comes through with television and media stuff like that. I read the fashion blogs, some of which have horrendously huge amounts of readers, but they're in a kind of clique all of their own, and they don't necessarily connect to the greater society in Second Life, for example. And we do shows like this, but we're only viewed by a fraction. It's increasing all the while, thank goodness. But I mean, we're increasingly only viewed by a fraction of people who've made the connection with us, or the people who've been on our show and stuff. The viral thing. And I'll sometimes stumble. I'm in Britain. I'm based in Britain, so although I'm up half the night with Tara here, I suppose New York hours, I don't really get in world to see shows, for example, that are in later American evening and things. You've got to sleep sometime, and so the world is so vast. It really is a challenge to reach out and get those connections. I think I'm quite fortunate because I came into Second Life about the same time as I was beta testing a service called Twitter, which everybody knows now. And originally, I was just in contact with people there and in World. We used to have Twitter meetups in World, but I was basically posting useful links that I found on the web, about virtual technology and stuff to people I knew. And I had them in mind when I was posting it, and I was just posting it out. And over a period of time, I've just got colossal subscribers. And I don't really talk on Twitter. I simply publish, every time I see a useful article, I post a link to it so my followers can follow that link. And, I make a choice as to what's interesting and what isn't, basically. And I've got one Twitter feed for Inworld and one for sort of technology and interfacing. But when I started broadcasting, I think it was probably an extension of that, because I thought, well, I'll have a feed full of all the videos people should watch. And then, we'll show them and we'll talk about them in the gaps in between. And so Metaverse Week in Reviews started as a webcam show, Tara and I on webcams, and different people would drop in on their webcams, with the real world faces rather than the avatars. But it tended to be a bit of monologue. You put them on camera, they say their piece, and somebody would comment, and then we'd move on. Whereas coming in world to do things, we get true dialogue and discussion. He says, ranting. But I can really sympathise with what you're saying there, because you obviously are compiling this show from, like, there's you look out to your near group, as it were, then you look out to the groups they're in, and it's a process, isn't it, where the reach is going to be gradual, and you better bring more and more on.
Exactly. If you look at from the perspective of being in one world, let's talk about a little bit about one world I was from, just to kind of give you an idea. It's node based. So node based means you can hop to a seat or you can hop to a standing spot. You can't stand around like you can here and walk around and drive a car. You're basically stapled to your seat. And so when you're talking about a world like that, there's not really much to do. So people started trying to do their own talk shows, but they don't even have voice there. So they would try to do it in chat, and it was too hard. You just can't keep up.
Yes.
It just goes too fast. And I had a dream of, well, there needs to be more out there because you just don't wear one outfit every day of the week. You just don't, in Second Life, there's so much more opportunities and in any other world. You just don't drive one car. You just don't have one house, do one thing. So why should you limit yourself to one world and say that's it, that's the end of it? We know in today's society that is not the way we roll. Everybody goes to many different programs. There's people who will be, for example, like you talk about Kitely. I'm on Kitely there too. Inworlds, there's IMVU, there's Nuvera, there's all these other places where I'll find so many of my friends and I'll be like, oh my God, I didn't know you were here too.
Yes.
And all of these places don't talk to each other. And it's like the way I look at it this way is the reach is I'm trying to find a way to reach out to my friend Anna, who's in New Vera and who's on IMVU and who's also on Second Life, and bring something to her that she can relate to having been on there. So that's why I decided to do the segments the way I to try to find something a little bit for everybody. And I know that it's going to take some time. It takes a long time to get an audience. It's like
Mm.
instant, and it can be frustrating when you work hard on a show and you pour your heart and soul into it and you only get 10 viewers. But that's the way it is. You just roll with it and you keep working hard to keep pushing that so that you can live your dream. Either you realize you can or you can't. It's one of two. One of two things are going to happen. Eventually, you're going to do something with it or you're going to have to walk away from it. And I'm hoping that I can do something good with it. And that's what I want to do. And that's why I broke it down. One part to talk about what I've seen or to share my vision of where I've been. Like we did the mesh worlds and stuff like that on the show. I wanted to kind of show everybody, hey, look, here's mesh on Second Life, but that's not the only thing. Look, here's mesh on Nuvera. They have mesh too, and this is how they use it. This is what they do. And then I wanted to do a show on outfits because I always have my friends tell me I can't come to Second Life because it's too expensive. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
If you knew the truth, it's not that expensive at all. I mean, sure, you can spend a lot of money on a beautiful dress, and let me tell you, those dresses are worth every single linden.
Yeah.
But if you're getting started, you can find so many things that are free that makes it life easy on here. In makes the whole experience just more beneficial as you learn, as you dip your toes into the water and then find out that it's really a place worth investing into. And I think that opens people's eyes. And I've had people tell me before that on view, like, wow, I never knew Second Life looked like that, and it's kind of like
Mm.
that type of thing. I feel like I reach out and show, like, come over here and check this out and
Yeah.
broaden your horizons, spread your talent around because there's so many people that have so much talent that it just blows my mind. And they're here on Second Life, but they're also the place I came from. And I look at their talent on both ends and I'm just like, God, they could do anything that they wanted to.
Mm.
So
I
it's
think
it's just amazing.
a lot of what we do, or my vision for the thing, I would show if you wanted things like your programs and stuff on our channel here and stuff, but it's all about outreach because I think a lot of people may tune into a video on the web or something and not fully understand until they see enough of this stuff what is going on. People look at Second Life, but they don't understand the power of the community and the engagement and the things you can do in there. They just judge it by its graphics and stuff like that. They need to be aware of the adventurous and more serious sides at the same time. So I'm really curious that I didn't realize you'd been involved with so many other worlds. We have showed the old clip for IMVU here, but I've never actually been in that one. But I'm very keen on the open simulator, the Inworlds, which is a walled garden like Second Life, but also the masses of open simulator worlds out there that are connected to the hypergrids, so we can teleport across grids as easily as we can teleport, in somewhere Second Life to a server destination. And to me, it's like you. I'm intrigued what you said because it is actually the totality of all this. There's probably a limited number of worlds I can engage with and keep them in my head, But it is all hopefully it is all one day about this whole engagement technology taking off. So I want to pull together as much as possible and project it out there to show the wealth of stuff available to people and the different platforms it can be done on, and also the best practices, the potential of what we can do. So your strategy, um, to make it more than a show, by with the segments. I think it's just a wonderful way to approach it, because somebody, maybe like the Weekend Review people are watching at the moment, when this show finishes, there's about 4 hours of machinima, all split into different categories like music, arts, lifestyle, performance, and all short clips we've been able to get and make a playlist for the week. And my thought has always been that people who can tune into the channel, maybe at one point they're really a bit bored with having me on a talk show, for example. But hopefully they might tune in another time when it's in the middle of the arts segment, and they'll be intrigued by all these artistic installations and the music and what's going on. So that during the course of the cycle, hopefully there's something to appeal to everybody. And this is something you seem to be trying to nail on the head.
And I really want to do that because I think it's really important. I see so many artists in Second Life that, like, Claudia Jewell, who's actually one of my favorites and a good friend of mine. I
Mm.
absolutely adore her. And, she's on here and also on Cloud, and her artwork is something to be shared and to be viewed by a lot of people that is, I would say, an experience. It's something that you need to experience in your lifetime. And there's also other artists on IMVU, and their artwork speaks just as much. And each place has its own different feeling.
Mm.
Your artwork on SL means one thing, your artwork on IMVU means another thing. But these people, they do this. They are already way ahead of me or of anybody because they've been doing this for years. They already go all these places.
Yes.
I'm just catching up with them. So it's also like how I do my DIY segment, do it yourself, because I have a lot of people ask me when I was on IMView, I would make hair and not the mesh hair itself, just the texture for it. And people would like, how do you do hair? How do you do this? How do you do skin? And just from my own experience as a creator, I decided that we needed to have a segment in that talked about how to do something and have a little video step by step to try to help people out there who want to be creators but don't, who can't find a way to do these simple things that are really a lot easier than it looks. So that's kind of our goal is to reach out and all of that. So like this next segment we're going to have, we're doing our Christmas special right now. My friend
Right.
Pack, who is the crazy scripter, is going to be making a lamp. So, but that's going to be on Second Life. So hopefully that gets out to people, maybe helps inspire some people to do that too.
Oh, it's great. How often are you going to sort of plan to? Because at the moment you're just pasting to YouTube, I think, are you, or are you distributing elsewhere?
Well, right now we had distributing anywhere. We had started this back in 2012, but I got very sick and now I became disabled and I wasn't able to
Oh,
do the show for a long time. I was really, really sick. I had just started it too, had just got the show out. So now we're trying to do it once a month because I'm feeling better and to keep it going like that. But only place we have right now is YouTube, and forget live stream. I can't afford it. I'm being honest. I mean, no down on live stream. I
well,
don't have the money.
to be honest, it costs nothing. But even this show's on a free channel. The viewers have to suffer ads from Google, but we're actually long time live stream. They've now turned it into something called New Live Stream, which is rather expensive, I think. But we could certainly set you up with a free channel if you want to keep. That way you can store all the same. Each episode as a continually playing channel, which are there, and we can of course use your program on this channel, so it'd be seen by more people too. So yeah, I mean monthly as well seems to be a good timing structure for sort of compendium, because unlike something like this, you've actually got to edit the thing. I mean, we just go live and say, well, what happens happens. But to make that good programming thing, which I do as well with other things, there really is a whole edit process involved there, which adds to the turnover time. And try and do something like that weekly, and you'd be asking for trouble.
And you are a brave soul for doing it live. You never know how people are going to react. I used to do the live thing too, and I had one person on my show that just about killed me.
I,
I was
I there have been occasions, let's put it that way, but I think we've done it long enough that we've got it down to a bit of an art now. I think, especially as we started this with our real world faces on the web. I mean, I'm sure both Tara and I were pretty nervous the first time we did it,
Yeah,
but
pretty nervous is an understatement, I think.
yeah, I think we were sort of having a conversation about what's what amongst ourselves, and then gradually we told people, and they tuned in, and then a few people began to pop in on their own web cameras, and we had a bit of a golden age like that, but we moved beyond that now. It's I think one of the things about what I would call the golden age there is that most of the people in Second Life and involved with this stuff, and people we're engaging with, were on the pioneer front. And I think in Second Life, particularly, a lot of those people have gone to other worlds. They've got their own open sims. If they're prototyping things or operating behind the scenes businesses and stuff like that, they've found other platforms that work better in Second Life. Because as time goes by, Second Life changes, and as time goes by, new platforms pop up and new possibilities arise. So, I think there was a time when there was an awful lot going on, whereas the focus now seems to have narrowed down. There's the multiplex of things happening with people building new systems. Even Philip Rosedale's building a new virtual world, unlike Second Life. And
I noticed that. Seems
yeah,
like everybody's building a new Second Life every day.
mm. Well, it's,
I,
it's
I
it's sort of 10 years later. Technology's moved on, and I think Second Life or Linden Labs particularly have a bit of a problem catching up. Because of they're stuck with a loss of 10-year-old code at the bottom of level of what it is, kind of thing.
And yeah, and as much and the challenge with user generated content is, I mean, one of the challenges is how do you update the underlying systems, the server software, the user software, without playing havoc with the existing wealth of content.
and I've seen that firsthand. And just in response to the channel thing, yes, we can take and use any help we can get. As far as that, with the uploading content, I've seen where they had an inventory crash on Nuvera and a lot of products were lost. And then you're talking about having to reinstall or get people to resubmit all of those products. And it can be devastating to some virtual worlds. They're still going. It's a great place. I really like it there. I just hope that they recover.
Tell me, moving aside from the program for now, I mean, I'm curious. You are involved in so many of these things. I'm beginning to wonder what your actual day's like, or how your virtual life goes. I mean, do you find yourself hopping between platforms a lot, or do you tend to sort of spend a lot of time in one, then give that a break, and then move to another?
Well, it just depends. I try to keep everything organized. So if I know what my segments are, we have a meeting and we decide what our segments are going to be.
Mm,
So then I'll put out that way. The majority of time, honestly, is spent with my now new love, Second Life, which I think is my favorite world to be on. But whenever we're getting ready to do the show, I'll hop on to Inworlds and I'll hop on to Nuvera and hop on to IMVU and consecutively,
yeah,
doing each one as I go methodically. So
yeah,
it's not like I get to enjoy all the worlds as much as I would love to, because there's just so much flavor to each one that I feel that I miss so much, and I worry that I'm not doing a good enough job, the
mm,
best, foot forward, because I can't be there like anybody who stays all the time on Inworlds. I rely a lot on talking to people,
yeah,
asking questions, just footwork, a lot of footwork. So if I go on Inworlds, it'll be almost like a whole day thing when I'm doing just one piece of a segment, just trying to
yeah.
dig up that part. So that's how my days go. And it's a good thing right now that I'm at home, not unfortunate that I'm disabled, but
Yeah.
I have time to do what I can do, so I'll go and do those things when I can, and then get each thing down and be able to break it down that way.
I think actually both of us are in the same position that way. There is a joy to being able to just wake up, stumble online, and etc. Yeah, no, that's quite curious. I mean, well, I have a backup studio, not specifically for this program, but for any chat show I want to do on OS Grid, for example. And I must admit, I neglected a bit. I put it there so that we could do a show like this on the hypergrid, where I could invite guests in from any other grid, any other open grid that is. Much like we do with Second Life here. So I keep meaning to do more of it, but pinning people down and getting them to a spot on the hypergrid to film is no easy task in itself, especially when they're scattered all over the grids and all over the world. Um, okay. I was quite curious. Do you have any particular interests? I mean, over and beyond broadcasting and hosting the show, do you swing personally towards the arts or music or any particular sort of interest?
Well, in real life, I'm an ex-professional blues singer. So
Oh, that's lovely. I love the blues. Oh, sing for me.
the last bit of work I did was with Guitar Shorty. I co-wrote a song with him on his short bare knuckle CD, and that was a lot of fun. He did it in my living room because he had to get his stuff done in LA, and they were waiting for him to get the album done. So he comes over and says, "Hey, I'm coming by your house," and we're friends. We've been friends for years. And so he would come over and sleep on my couch and stuff like that after a show, and it was late or whatever. It wasn't that often, but it did happen a few times. And this particular time, he came over because he was in town doing a show, and I got a call from his manager telling me make sure he gets his album. So
Yeah.
I'm like, okay. So then I drove him in his van to Chinese food, and I took him out for Chinese. Like I say, I had lunch with Guitar Shorty, and he's a great guy. He's just a ball. I love him. He's just a wonderful person. And he came back, and we're sitting in my living room, like, so I hear you got an album you're supposed to get done now, you know? And he starts telling me, yeah, yeah, everyone's, they got to do this. They're writing on me about it. And so I said, well, you want some help? And we just sat there, and I took out my pen and paper. We started writing, and we got that one song done, and that was a lot of fun. Although I didn't get to sing, we were talking about it, but it was just too much expense to bring me up from Texas to LA when they had singers right there.
Yeah.
I used to sing with Calvin Owens, who is BB King's band leader, and he
Ooh, big one.
he had a band called True Blue, which was one of his albums, and his orchestra is a 16-piece orchestra. And I got introduced when I used to do the blues festivals, and I had a band called All Nighters, and we were kind of a rock blues group, and we would play all over Austin. And it's originally, well, not originally where I'm from, but where I'm from now. And I was headlining a show, and someone was there watching me, and they said, well, I'm going to recommend you for this position. The next thing I know, I got a call, and the next thing I know, they're flying me to Houston. And I went to Sugar Hill Studios, and I got to record in the same studio that Beyonce recorded in, and it was great, and it was kind of quite experience. Now that was Hands, and I was on contract with him for 2 years. But during that time, he died of pancreatic cancer and a
Oh,
bunch of other. Yeah, it was very, very traumatic. It was a very traumatic period in my life because it was just I lost a lot of people during that period, and people very important close to me. And after that, I just shut down and I stepped out of music, except for the last thing I did was with a bare knuckle CD, and I haven't been doing music ever since. And that's when I discovered Virtual Worlds was right about then. It was because I was going through a lot of stuff, and I just didn't want to be on stage anymore. I just lost the passion for it. But I still love music. I still want to get back into it now, but being with the condition that I have, it's not so easy to do that anymore. So I project it here.
yeah. I'm just
Yeah.
thinking. There were so many. I mean, Second Life's music scene is really dominated by what I might call, the modern troubadours. But they don't go anywhere. They just go live in their bedroom and things. But there's a lot of blues clubs in here, and you get some organic world, shall I say, performers in here. But equally, you get people in here who maybe make a bit of the transition out. So the music, I think, especially under the old management of Linden Lab, were really targeted. You know, they used to make a big thing of sort of come to a concert in Second Life, and you know, these are real people delivering real music. So the the musical part of it as Second Life, I think is wonderful, and I've got landmarks for more blues clubs than I'm ever going to visit again, because that is that genre of music is my particular thing too, very much. So, um,
Well, I think it to me, blues music is natural. It speaks to the root of the soul of who the person is,
yeah.
and there's no other music that can really move me. And it's like people like Griff Bameson. You know, he's a
Oh,
great guitarist and a good friend of mine, and just an amazing. He's got soul phases blues like Fret's Nirvana
I
and those
played
guys.
I played a couple of grist tracks on last week's show, or rather, it's in last week's playlist. Somebody filmed them, and yeah, great stuff. I thought.
It's just the music scene here is amazing, and there's so much here that can be found, but the platform needs to be worked on and fixed a little bit before we can really enjoy it. Because can you imagine they're doing a concert with the actual people that come down here, and the people keep crashing? You've got 10,000 avatars.
Yeah, I know. A
Yeah,
very
this has been that's been a sticking point for kind of name acts forever because of just the sheer limitations on how many avatars can be in a sim or even a quad at the same time. So that does place some pretty severe limits on streaming live major performers.
We did
Um,
Well,
actually. A very good friend of ours who was actually the first British musician ever in Second Life, I believe. No, probably not the actual first, but the first British one. Slim Warrior, she's called. You may have heard of her. But we did a few things with her, like she was performing along with a couple of other musicians, and we had a Rocking the Metaverse season, which we televised, where it was the same musicians, four different acts every week, but every day it was on a different grid. So it'd be Second Life, and then it would be on the Open Sims, and then it'd be on a desktop world called I've forgotten what it's called now. But
yeah,
basically,
that one.
yeah, basically trying out, and it was a really interesting exercise because it totally didn't work in some places, even though they were ostensibly very like Second Life. The mechanics were such we just couldn't set it up properly. And you'd have these sort of 2.5D cartoon avatars and stuff, and your camera angles were limited, and there was no way of really creating the impression of a live performance. But then we went to other places where it was actually really simple, even simpler than Second Life, and a lot of it had how the world is built, for example. You can only get so many people on the simulator in Second Life before things get seriously slow, but the technology of other systems is deployed a different way, and potentially you can have hundreds of avatars on a simulator, except the simulator is built very simply, not as elaborate as here, but I think we still live in the age where people go online to see concerts, whereas just video cam. Bands get cameras into the gigs and they broadcast them, even if it's just on YouTube or maybe something more serious. But I wonder if it's a matter of time before people actually get more into the idea of logging into a virtual world to see a show. Some of the tribute bands in Second Life, like the Virtual Pink Floyd or whatever they're called, who ostensibly have permission to mime to a stream. The actual show is rather remarkable because they're miming to the Pulse album most of the time, and that's the sound you're hearing. But of course, they put on all the particle effects and they put on all the visuals that actually make you give you the ambience of being at one of those sort of performance concerts. So, and of course, you can do things virtually, artistic things with the performance that you couldn't just do in the real world. So it's fascinating.
I think that's the same thing. I realized, the limitations whenever Duran Duran came on here,
Oh yeah.
Nick Rhodes came on, and it was just like immediately the entire room was filled up, and I could barely move, and you're just straining to get a vision of the avatar
Mm.
Rhodes standing there and telling you about the album and everything, and it made me realize that that really, until we get a lot better graphics and a lot better way, more stable platform to hold everything like that, it's going to be a while. And I think it can be, the more real you get, and the more real you get, and like the way that our skin is and our clothes is, the way everything is forming, it's going to get to the point where you almost won't be able to tell the difference between real life and virtual life. And then
Exactly.
it'll, yeah, it'll think that's almost a necessity. You'll eventually start working in virtual environments.
Well,
And
there's a Japanese band. They're a bit more. Well, actually, they've gone a bit less heavy metal, thank goodness. But they do a lot of performances, which are under our radar in a way because they're in Japan, in Japanese language. Um, they're called the Gago Band, and as far as I can tell, I mean, all their live performances. They're on lockdown sims, and the best thing to do is what we did: televise them out so people can watch them without the lag, and we just have the crew necessary to do the filming in world. But they actually come on, and you look at their animations, and what they're doing is actually in the real world performance, they're actually all wearing linked up bodysuits, so everything is motion captured. And so when you see them moving around in the virtual environment, the voice and things on the avatar lip sync is not quite right, but generally speaking, the animation is so complex. You just feel like you're watching a real person gyrating around on stage and doing their thing. You don't get the sense of the animation loop or anything else like that going on. And that
Yeah,
that that
those are seriously impressive performances for that very reason. Um, I recall being quite fascinated when we when we hooked up with one of their concerts, and realizing that, wait a minute, they're not using animations. They're using bodysuits. I'm seeing real action here. This isn't repeating itself.
yeah. I mean, they are actually, of course, a big band in real life in Japan. In the rock fraternity, so they're not short of the cash to actually set themselves up to do these things. So it's really great that they're investing, the time in projecting themselves virtually as much as performing live in real life.
Yeah, it might be worth noting, Varda, because you're probably not quite as plugged into kind of the bleeding edge of what the geeks are doing out there with fiddling with software. But IBM has done some pretty impressive stress tests with um, an open sim style setup that is handling upwards of 1,000 avatars in single sims. So
wow.
there have been some very impressive and very
Mm.
optimistic stress tests of that sort. Obviously, someone like IBM is probably, their attention is a bit more on the on the business side of potential uses, but
They tend to rely on, they basically up the use of avatar presence, and they drop down the use of all the things that might inhibit that. But we had a conference a few weeks ago, an OpenSim developers conference that was virtual, and it was held on a specially made OpenSim installation. And even that, on quite a small scale, they had a four sim complex, but they were actually able to get 200 avatars comfortably onto an open sim that, to all intents and purposes, had all the detail and flexibility of Second Life. So it is possible. I did
mhm.
like it when um, I almost put it in earlier when Tara was talking about the Havoc, because I think the Havoc engine is one of the things that's failing Second Life too. A lot of open simulators don't use the Havoc engine. But that's
Yeah,
oh, we lost you, Tara. You've gone invisible. Quick, change the camera.
yes, I'm logging back in. Yeah,
we
so
we
sitting
all,
here,
as
that's
always,
yeah,
as
one of the benefits of using Skype for the audio is that an avatar can crash, and and as long as Petlove running camera knows that somebody's out of the loop, she can camera away from us while we finish the crash and get ourselves logged back in again.
I can't emphasize enough how integral to this show Pet Love Pet Shop is. She's got it to a T. So that camera will roam and compensate. Okay, if it's okay, Vasa, we do have to finish pretty early today, so we've probably got 20 minutes at most before I have to close the show. So I'm actually going to run through, and we'll just all discuss, if we may, the odd links I've got here for today. There's a post at Linden Arts blogspot.com in a week about LEA Full Sim Art Series. The December one has just opened, and it's Giovanna Cerise and something called Physicofolia. Right. So if you want more about that, check out lindenartsblogspot.com. But in fact, I know we do have a promotional video clip for that coming up in the arts section a bit later on the web when this show is finished.
It might be apropos, Mal, if I could cut in here briefly, and that is that
Sure.
applications are currently being taken for the next round of artists in residence under LEA. So,
Yeah.
And the deadline is the 1st of January. So if you're an artist and you have never applied and you have an idea for something you would like to do with a full sim, now is the time to apply. Do it. Don't just think about it. Do it.
Yeah. I also have a quick post from a new blog to me here, really. It's called Winter Sites. That's winter and then sites as in SIGHTS, in fact, all one word, wintersites.wordpress.com. And yesterday, there's a post there called the Red Shoes Project in SL. Now, we've actually mentioned this in previous weeks, but it's rather, there's a link to an interview there. There's some rather nice pictures taken of the project. There's a listing of all the artists involved in the background of the project and everything else. So check out wintersites.wordpress.com. Looks like if the rest of the posts on this blog are of that quality, it'd be in my feed by now. Tales for Christmas and the Dickens. Oh, actually, I'll leave this because this is part of what Tara mentioned earlier. There's events at the Century Library based on Charles Dickens, and there's Inworld performances, of course, of A Christmas Carol, one of Charles Dickens' most famous works, so to speak. And there's another link here saying page not found. That's useful, isn't it? Right, I'll go back to scroll.
Yeah, somebody should do a performance called 404.
Right, we have the Abbey Awards coming up, so that's being promoted, I think. Oh yes, this is the page not found actually. So I think it's called the Torch 3D. The link here is a feed proxy at google.com, which may be why it wasn't found. But they've actually had a number of posts. You'll be able to find them on my Mal Burns writer Twitter feed. I hasten to add. A stroll through the 2013 RFL Festival Christmas Expo, sorry, part 4. Today's post was actually their final stroll, so to speak. So it's been a 5-part stroll, I think, to the Christmas Expo. It's actually at the Christmas Expo that the Abbey Awards are happening, but Safia Widdershins has been doing daily talks twice a day from that venue. I still don't know where they've been filmed or not. I have certainly not been able to make them, even the really interesting ones, one of which collided with last week's show here, but hopefully there'll be a film record somewhere. If not, I guess that's the nature of the game, because the Safia tends to run those talks at things like the SL birthday builds and stuff like that, and they've always been very interesting and eminently filmable things. When we could find the camera people to cover it all, of course. And so, yeah, that's that. Just moving on. Um, Daniel Voyager's blog as well has memorable events and new records during 2013 and looking at the year ahead in 2014. And this is a post on Inworlds, not being Inworld, but Inworlds, which is an independent grid, a bit like Second Life. So you can get that review of the year in Inworlds from Daniel Voyager's WordPress.com. If you want to know more about the detail of the Dickens project, which is now returned for a second year, SL Enquirer, SLENQUIRER.com, have one of their nice expanded interview articles up on that this week. And they also have a post on the sites and famous landmarks of Second Life Australia. There are a lot of Australian builds in Second Life, so they did a special this week on Australian destinations you might be interested in Second Life. Right, we've passed that. Our friends at Mad P have they have up permanently a build called Mad City, and it's been overhauled at the moment to be, let's say, Christmassy. Now, if you want to see a good example of in-world builds and things, you can't really get better than Mad P. So if you want to look up Mad City, that might be a useful destination. You can read a bit about it at CALTINTOBIAS.com. And the blog post is just entitled Mad City. And everything else. Winter is coming. Looking at the roleplay events, that's another Google link. No, I think. And this might be interesting for further too. But given what we were just talking about, once again, SL Inquirer near the beginning of the week had a special feature on live music and venues in Second Life. Piers Diesel reporting. It tends to be Piers Diesel that does a lot of this reporting. Very good articles they do. And oh yes, they're on a roll this week. SL Inquirer again, from way back on the 10th, which was early in the week. The 7 wonders of the SL world. This time it's Shanios Howlett reporting. This was we've all heard the expression "the 7 wonders of the world." I don't know whether they're still the old 7 wonders or whether there are 70 now, but it's taking the idea of the 7 wonders of the virtual world, or rather Second Life anyway, and looking at what the 7 wonders might be. So, good destination tips. And I think that's about it for my list, actually, to be honest. Everything else seems to be going back to the spies, and I really too many blogs to mention there. So, Father, it's also nice, we like to ask people on the show, just in general terms, sort of what's up with you? What have you been doing in the last week, or what you're going to be doing in the coming week?
Oh, well, I'm going to be working on getting the show done. That's on top of my list to try to get everything ready and finished for before Christmas, which is a race to see if I can get it done. When you have real life and your virtual life, trying to juggle the both is sometimes interesting.
It's funny, this time of year, everybody wants to be doing things in Second Life. They've got their winter builds or their holiday builds or their kind of New Year builds and stuff. But equally, when you try and contact them to talk about it, they're totally unavailable, because obviously this is the same time that they have to attend to real world obligations.
Yeah, the real world tends to get in the way of my fun. No, just kidding.
Yeah, I know. Somebody should take that. Somebody should take the organic sim offline and just leave us in here.
I really wish I had a way to log off from real life sometimes.
Really, yes.
So.
I sort of, you might appreciate this, Barta. I actually have the ability, sort of, occasionally to have a forced log off from the RL sim when my power goes off. And especially if it happens to be combined with snow or other weather conditions that keep me at home. I live out in a rural area, so I don't tend to go places a lot. But there have been been times when I have found myself cut off in more ways than one.
If I interrupt a second, actually, I noticed Lapison is actually having a chat in the live channel here, which is great. Hi, Lap. We'll be seeing him in a minute, or I will. But he's actually, pertinently, he's actually mentioned the virtual Pink Floyd. They're doing a benefit concert at the moment for Smileys for Children, and they've already raised 2,000 no, 200,000 lindens in the first 20 minutes of the show. That's not bad.
That's
My
good.
that is at least $1,000, and that's just in the first 20 minutes of the show that's going on now. So that's a nice one from the virtual Pink Floyd there.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful.
Good news. So sorry, I sort of interrupted with that, or
No, I think that just besides getting the show ready, I've been practicing my package wrapping skills, and I'm disappointed.
um, I
My
ha-
package is good.
I haven't even written a single one of these Christmas cardy things yet. I haven't even thought. All this stuff passes me by until my real world doorstep starts getting flooded with these things like that. Oh darn! I better pay attention to this stuff.
Well, like I do this for Christmas, and then in between that and trying to get everything done and trying to manage what I've got in my real life, I just say forget it. My boyfriend's a photographer, a brilliant photographer, takes beautiful pictures. So he got our Christmas card ready for us. Bless his heart. I don't know what I would do without him, but I couldn't do it on my own.
Yes. Useful, I think is the word. So, how about you, Tara? Well, let's have your roundup. You mentioned something you were holding back till later at the beginning.
Oh, I'll save it for next week.
Oh, okay.
It'll keep. Given our time constraints here today, it'll keep till next week.
Yeah, actually, yeah. I mean, we got 10 minutes, but better safe than sorry. I'm sure
Oh yes,
Pet
yes,
Love will appreciate.
yes.
We
Oh
will
yes.
appreciate the extra time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I was just gonna, I was going to ask Varda if she has in your comments about people who've commented on Second Life being expensive, and you've uh, pointed out to them that no, it doesn't have to be at all to get good clothes. And I was just going to ask if you've gotten yourself plugged into there are at least two blogs that specifically focus on freebies. Um,
I sometimes do that. I'm not the best to stay in touch on togs. You know, you can call me that fair weather friend that I'm there all the time, but I kind of come and go, and and so it's like when I get a blog, I'm the same way. I'll get on this blog and I'm like, oh, this blog is the best thing I ever seen. Oh my god, I'm gonna stay reading it, and then like a week later, I've forgotten.
oh
But
sure,
I've
yeah.
You
I run it.
need you need something called an RSS button. So you just go to that and then you add it to an RSS feed reader. Because I scan masses of stuff and I don't have time to read it all. So it's really the best way. I get everything, but I get it in a nice economical fashion.
Well, they
Yeah.
also worry about the price of land because you see in a lot of these other places they don't charge for land or anything. So
Mm.
you're in a place where you can have your room for free, your house for free. There's no extra fee. Like IMView has a premium, like Second Life has a premium. The premium is considerably smaller. So does Nuvera have a premium. But you can have your room and your house for free, no charge. And then you come to Second Life and then it's like sticker shock. You go to buy a land and they're just like, oh my God, are you to pay that every single month? You mean I own it? And it's hard for them to understand why it's like that because there's so
Yeah.
much you could do with it.
Well,
You could,
this is a big argument going on now. It's why the educators lost their discounts and stuff like that, and the sheer cost of land here is why people go to the open simulators.
and,
If they don't need to be on the public high street, why bother coming to Second Life?
and then they complain about advertising how much the cost is of that. And I'm being very honest. I'm a very honest person about that stuff. I'm very straightforward about it. I like to advertise for my show, but I can't afford to pay a TV channel sometimes when they're asking like $100 an hour.
Mm,
I just can't afford that. It's just unrealistic for someone like me.
mm.
Where, I understand they put all the work and they put all that, and I'm not saying it's not worth it. But for a lot of different people who don't experience these type of things in other worlds, that's what's such a shock for them when they come over and see these type of worlds that have this stuff, because it's completely, why do I have to pay for it when I don't have to pay for it here? And it's a valid question,
Yeah.
you know.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah.
I
Well,
think
it's
you. So I was just going to say, Valter, I think you and I, Valdo, sorry, I think you and I are going to have a little meet up offline at some point and see ways of collaborating on PR there. So yeah, with others
yeah,
maybe.
yeah, and of course there are lots of other ways to get PR. So, it is one of those challenges that somebody has to kind of become familiar with all the options for marketing stuff in Second Life, and particularly the things you can do for for nothing, for sweat equity, as distinct from shelling out lindens or real dollars for it.
That'd be a show to do, hint.
Well,
There you go.
I don't know what it is, but I've never, in the entire time I've been in Second Life, which is 7 or 8 years, ever put any money into it. I've got some money in Linden, so a reasonable amount I have to add. But and therefore I buy things with that. But I never, little bits trickle in here and there from various things, and I've never had, I've never been a good, I put time and energy in. I don't put money in. I don't want to pay for anything.
You can
But
do a DIY on PR.
yeah, indeed. Although I'm actually no good at it myself, but I'm in touch with, I collaborate with all the people that have different talents. That's really what it's about. I mean, AVU TV, who are doing the Abbey Awards shortly, they have a site which is like a YouTube for Second Life, or for Machinima specifically, and they have a good focus there because they have the community and everything's catalogued by shows and creators and stuff. I run things like the channel this show's on, which is like a weekly compilation of what I think's the best. Then we got Metaverse TV, who they broadcast Miss Virtual World yesterday, which is an epic event, and broadcast specific things. And again, they're like me, they're operating channels, but they also publish the individual programs elsewhere. And then there's lots of other shows around that are actually the sort of remnants of what was once Treat TV, which tend to be, Lauren's comedy show is filmed by Tinker and Melville and Gia Meek, and there's a sort of lot going on, So one of my functions is I try and pull it all together and make sure everybody talks to each other, even if they don't want to. For the
And you
great,
do
for
all
the
that and still try to live.
yeah, for the greater good and the outreach of it all. Anyway, I'm thinking of Pet now, and also, in fact, I'm running the channel over at AVTV at 3 o'clock. So I think I'm going to call the show a wrap. It's been absolutely wonderful having you here, Father. Very interesting. Um, I've got to get you back on one of our longer shows when we've got more people to continue the conversation. But I'm really excited about your show, and the effort being put into it, and the packaging of it generally. So we'll talk more, but I certainly wish you all good luck with that, and thank you very much for being here.
Well, thank you very much for being here. I appreciate it. It's nice meeting you both, Tara and Mal, and I look forward to it.
And I'm definitely planning to go search out one of the shows you've done already and check it out, because I haven't seen one yet. So
Please
it's
do.
a wonderful concept. It's a great concept. I think it's one that hasn't been done, to really do multiple virtual environments under one umbrella in a comprehensive sort of way.
Mm.
Well, hopefully it catches on, and that's all I can hope for. So maybe, we never know.
Indeed. Okay, well, my thanks to Vata, and also my thanks to Taro, of course. And I'm actually going to close the show. Abruptly. Yes, I could do it abruptly when I think about how to do it abruptly. You know what? I'm like rambling on and on to try and finish the show when all I've got to really do is say goodbye, and we'll get on with other things. Do continue watching the show on the channel, especially the magnificent Machinima documentary is coming up next, which is about 40 minutes. And we will be back same time, next place. And if you're interested in hearing about the AVI Awards, all sorts of awards for everything in Second Life, venues, models, fashion design, TV shows, we are not nominated. Why? Sorry. And stuff like that. There's an award for everything. And that starts at 3 p.m. over on AVU TV's live stream channel. And I'll be in the studio there doing what I do best, I suppose. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you again, same time, same place, next week. Yes, next week we'll do.